I want you to hit me as hard as you can.
Steven Spielberg is kinda crazy. All filmmakers are kinda crazy. If you know that, then you're a real nerd. One of the craziest directors ever is named Steven Spielberg. As a kid, he could not read. Steven Spielberg is dyslexic. The other kids bullied him, made his childhood hectic. To escape from this drama, he created his own. With his dad's camera, he made short films, and that put him in the movie maker zone. He made war movies and westerns. For a beginner, they were alright. He made his first feature film in high school. It was called Firelight. Not everything in Steven's career played out easy and nice. Steven was rejected by USC Cinema School twice. The movie that is Steven's life was about to thicken its plot when he grabbed a briefcase and snuck into Universal Studios' lot. Young Steven wandered around every production, absorbing everything, just trying to learn something. He made a short film called Amblin. It was like a hippie love letter. This caught the eye of Universal, and he became their youngest director ever. It was quite the business offer. He directed episodes of Columbo and Night Gallery with Joan Crawford. She predicted that Steven would become the biggest director of all time. After a few Oscars and a couple $1 billion, I think he's doing just fine. His career was built off his skills and a little bit of luck. He directed the hit TV movie Duel. It's about a killer truck. Steven shot this film in only 16 days. He always works fast. The studio loved this TV movie so much they put it in theaters to get some extra cash. Steven Spielberg's talent did always impress. His first theatrical feature was called Sugarland Express. It involved many car crashes and characters who broke laws. Then Steven created the summer blockbuster with his film Jaws. Spielberg shot on the ocean because he wanted it to look real. Seasick is how all the actors did feel. He dragged an actress in the water while tied to a rope. On set, George Lucas got his head stuck in the shark after Spielberg's practical joke. The mechanical shark sank straight to the ocean floor. But the shark wasn't the only issue. They had many more. The boat started to sink and the film got wet. Richard Dreyfuss and Robert Shaw always fought on set. The shark not working was a blessing in disguise. It forced Steven to be creative with the camera and editing to play with the viewer's eyes. So many troubles, it's a miracle they finished. The shark is only on screen for 4 minutes. A real shark got tangled in the cage and the footage was used. Steven named the shark after his lawyer, Bruce. The film was a huge success. People seem to like this. Steven claims that his alter ego is Richard Dreyfuss. So he was cast again in Close Encounters of the Third Kind. Spielberg's sci-fi fantasy really taps into the wonder in your mind. The film was released in 1977, and it holds the record for the most cinematographers, 11. They put this truck on a turntable and rotated it 360 degrees. Steven edited this movie secretly away from the studio because he can do as he please. He made a World War II slapstick spoof called 1941, an outrageous comedy that's not for everyone. Some of these wacky stories are based on truth. I'm serious. Spielberg fired a prop machine gun to call cut because no one could hear over this. Steven shot 1 million feet of film. Now that's a doozy. It was very difficult working with a drunk John Belushi. The cinematographer was fired due to creative differences. He spoofed his own film in this scene. Spielberg and his Spielberg references. Some say making a good movie is a lost art. Good movies like Raiders of the Lost Ark. Steven and George Lucas got together and made a movie that they always wanted to see. Like a bullwhip-wielding archaeologist who can punch a Nazi. The entire film crew got sick, but not Steven. He only ate SpaghettiOs. The original name was Indiana Smith, but Spielberg changed it to Jones. Give Steven a camera, he knows how to use it. And he loves John Williams music. Next, Steven did something kinda cute and kinda freaky. He made the film E.T. Everybody loves this lost space explorer. The original genre for E.T. was supposed to be horror. Spielberg shot most of the film at the eye level of a child, a kid's point of view. Spielberg would digitally remove all the guns from the re-release in 2002. A 2'10" stuntman and a boy without legs played the creature from space. Albert Einstein and a pug were the inspiration for E.T.'s face. He shot the film chronologically so that saying goodbye to E.T. would feel real. And there's a ride at Universal Studios if you're seeking a thrill. What can I say? Steven Spielberg is the man. He directed a segment of the Twilight Zone movie, Kick the Can. Custard and raspberry sauce were used to create the chilled monkey brains. His production office has a room full of classic arcade games. He produced Gremlins, Goonies, Back to the Future 1, 2, and 3, Arachnophobia, Poltergeist, and he never drinks coffee. His next film starred Whoopi and Oprah, spelled backwards that's Harpo. The Color Purple was nominated for 11 Oscars and won 0. In Empire of the Sun, he directed Christian Bale when he was just a baby. The Last Crusade is his favorite film about that badass professor man. 4 horses in the film were gifts from the King of Jordan. Spielberg spent 5 months working on the script for Rain Man, but did this film instead. To avoid disease, Steven had 2,000 rats specially bred. In Ready Player One, he took us down the Shining's hallways. Will you go see a Spielberg movie even if it's bad? Yes, always. Spielberg made a movie based on a Spielberg-inspired book. He became great friends with Robin Williams while making Hook. Making this film made his spirit kinda sore, but then he entered the world of the dinosaur. The animatronics were done by Stan Winston. T-Rex's roar was a mixture of a dog, a tiger, an alligator, an elephant, and a penguin. Spielberg would roar like a dino in his megaphone to get the actors to listen. A real hurricane hit the island and the film crew helped with the cleanup mission. Jurassic Park is a movie that I really dig. Steven Spielberg has a Lego minifig. Steven Spielberg bought the film rights for the book before it was even published by Michael Crichton. And Steven said he could relate to John Hammond because he's just like him. This film took 65 million years to make. It's a blast from the past. And like Jaws and E.T., this film made a lot of cash. Trying out these new special effects was a big risk. Spielberg left Jurassic Park's post-production to work on Schindler's List. With his black and white footage, Spielberg's camera taught us an important history lesson. Working on Schindler's List caused Spielberg to suffer from depression. He would call Robin Williams to make him laugh and be happy. Half of the film is shot with a handheld camera so it would feel like a documentary. It is a film that can't be ignored. Steven didn't even use a storyboard. He got permission to film inside Auschwitz, but didn't out of respect for the souls lost. Spielberg turned down his paycheck because he felt like it was blood money from the Holocaust. He used the profits of this film to start a foundation, and received the Cross of Merit from that Germany nation. The girl in the red dress was a specially effective special effect. Technically, Schindler's List is a student project. You see, this dropout was still thirsty for knowledge, and during this time he went back to college. Steven has stated that E.T. and Schindler's List are the films he wants to be remembered for. He won the Best Director and Best Picture Oscar. Is this movie more than just a movie? I'll never know. To lighten the mood every night, Spielberg would watch that Seinfeld show. After Schindler's List, he took a break for a few years, but returned to resurrect our prehistoric fears. It was called Lost World, Jurassic Park. It was good, but it was missing that classic spark. This film had custom-made guns. He kept one for his private collection. Next, he directed Amistad, which tackles another topic that causes depression. Then came Saving Private Ryan, another film about a historic tragedy. He won Best Director, but Shakespeare in Love snatched its Best Picture victory. But Spielberg doesn't make movies for the awards, he makes them for you and me. Saving Private Ryan triggered lots of war PTSD. Spielberg would come up with shots right on the spot, and Real Brothers inspired this movie's plot. Steven sent all of the actors to boot camp except Matt Damon to help reflect in their performances that they hate him. The Navy gave Spielberg the highest honor for a civilian. Steven is worth over $3 billion. Don't worry, Private Ryan, Tom Hanks will save ya. The film is so violent that it was banned in Malaysia. It's very violent. They used 40 barrels of blood for the opening scene. For artistic reasons, Steven reduced the color saturation of red, blue, and green. Steven requested that nobody gain admittance to the film after it has started. He gave a lot of money to veterans because he is kind-hearted. Spielberg personally held the camera for many shots during the Omaha Beach battle. He also made that war movie called War Horse. He was back in the saddle. But before he did that, he made AI. He took over that project after Kubrick had to die. Did I mention that Spielberg is kind of a big dork? He directed that sci-fi film Minority Report. It starred Tom Cruise, one of the world's most famous faces. 1/4 of the film's budget came from product placements. Steven hired experts to accurately predict the future. To make these special effects, they used a computer. Spielberg and Cruise agreed to waive their usual salaries to help with the cash flow. In Catch Me If You Can, there were 100 costume changes for Leonardo DiCaprio. The real Frank Abagnale Jr. said the film was 80% true. And this movie has Tom Hanks too! Then he worked with Tom Hanks again. I guess he likes his acting. In The Terminal, he did some kind of foreign accent. Steven Spielberg sure does a lot of work. For The Terminal, they built a full-size replica of the airport. He owns the Rosebud Sled and Orson's War of the Worlds radio script. He also made War of the Worlds into a big-budget action flick. Spielberg has so much money, it's insane. For this movie, they bought and destroyed a real plane. Spielberg didn't do any interviews or promotions for the movie Munich. The guys from Knocked Up love that movie. Here, let me prove it.
Oh, Munich! Munich fucking rules. Munich is awesome.
He rarely holds auditions to see if his actors can act. Spielberg produced Roger Rabbit, American Tail, and We're Back. He also produced Twister, Zorro, and Deep Impact, Casper, Transformers, and Men in Black. Spielberg produced Band of Brothers 2, and he's the godfather to Goop and Drew. He brought us Freakazoid, Animaniacs, Tiny Toons, and some other shows you remember. And he was in Blues Brothers and Austin Powers Gold member. Spielberg jumped the shark when he nuked the fridge. Kingdom of the Crystal Skull was a total cinematic cringe. Steven is kinda paranoid when it comes to security and being safe. He has a motorcycle in his office in case he needs to make a quick escape. He directed his first animation with his Peter Jackson friend. Spielberg did a lot of his own virtual camera work in the movie Tintin. Steven collects Oscars from actors who are very famous, like Clark Gable and Bette Davis. For War Horse, the actors did intensive horse training for 2 months, so that they could perfectly perform the horse stunts. With the exception of a 3-second shot, there are no digital effects. That's all real. Spielberg almost drowned in the mud and was rescued by the crew. This is not a drill. Steven movies get you thinking. He spent 12 years researching Lincoln. During filming, Steven addressed to the cast as their character. Daniel Day-Lewis won Best Actor. Spielberg also got Mark Rylance an Oscar. His next film was The BFG, based on children's literature. You like good movies? Well, Spielberg makes the most. Even though I never got around to seeing The Post. This film is about censorship, and it was censored in Lebanon. Akira, King Kong, Batman, Chucky, and the Battletoads are in Ready Player One. This is the end of the video, definitely not the beginning, so I will end this with a Spielberg quote. I dream for a living.